Welcome to Wall Street Journal Live. I'm Kelly Grant. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a bill banning U.S. adoptions of Russian children. And that's obviously created some tensions in Washington. And we have Greg White joining us from Moscow with some of the details. Greg, thank you for being here.
All right, to be here.
So now, this obviously has been pretty contentious here, but tell me about what the Russian public is saying about this. How are they reacting to this news?
Well, it's been highly controversial over the last couple of weeks as it's been discussed in Parliament, and as Mr. Putin's moved towards signing it. A vocal minority of the sort of cultural elite, liberals in the cities and things, have been quite critical of it as playing politics with the fate of children and heartless move. But the bulk of Russians, judging from opinion polls, seem to support the move. They cite the several cases of abuse and even death of adoptive children in the states at the hands of their adoptive parents. Those cases got a lot of coverage in the state media here over the last couple of years, and so the Russian public seems to be on the view that it's potentially dangerous to send kids to the U.S. as adoptees.
And this takes place pretty quickly, January 1st implementation, as I understand. What does that do for all of these adoptions that are in progress?
It's not entirely clear, actually. The law does indeed take effect next week. Just what that means for these adoptions, often the adoption process can take 18 months or more. So there looks like about 50 adoptions in the pipeline at the moment. We've gotten conflicting signals from officials here on what's going to happen to those. Some have suggested that those adoptions will all be reversed and the kids will be given to new Russian adoptive parents. But late this afternoon we heard from the Kremlin spokesman that in cases which have advanced already through the final phase where there's a court decision transferring the child's the guardianship of the child to the adoptive parents, that those adoptions would go through. So I think this is something that will play out over the next couple of weeks and months as we see what happens with it.
So leaves a lot of parents up in the air.
Indeed, this is a very stressful process for these parents who've often, in many cases, gone through substantial time and expense to prepare for adoption of these kids, and some of them actually have met the children, given them photo albums of their future families, and then to be faced with the prospect that they won't actually be able to take them home.
And now, Russia has said pretty openly that this is retaliation for U.S. law regarding human rights violations. Can you give me a little bit of details about that and how that's played in?
That's right. This is part of a package of steps that the Kremlin's pushed through to retaliate for something called the Magnitsky Act, which was a law that President Obama signed earlier this month. That was a law aimed at punishing Russian human rights violators by denying them U.S. visas and imposing financial sanctions in the U.S. financial system on their assets. That law evinced great criticism and unhappiness on the part of Russian authorities, who viewed it as overreach by the U.S. And they vowed to retaliate for what they called an unfriendly act. Initially, the package involved sort of mirror image kind of sanctions against U.S. officials alleged to be involved in human rights violations, as well as judges who had been and other court personnel had been involved in the abuse cases against Russian adoptees in the U.S. But it seemed that wouldn't have much of an effect, because obviously far more Russian officials were likely to be traveling to the U.S. and the U.S. officials would be coming here. So they expanded the package of steps. One of the additional ones was the adoption ban. Another move is very tight restrictions on U.S. funding of non-governmental organizations in Russia that do anything that is viewed to be political activity.
So this doesn't seem like a great situation. And as we move forward, what does this mean for U.S. relations with Russia and the efforts to end the war in Syria?
That's really the question now going forward. The Russians have said that this is a sort of tit-for-tat response. They've made their response. They didn't start this. They said we viewed the Magnitsky Act as an unfriendly one. We had to respond to it. We have responded to it, and now we want to go back to business as usual. The U.S. has denounced the adoption ban and the other steps in the law today, but so far the reaction from Washington has been pretty muted. It's hard to know for sure whether that's just because it's holiday week there or because in fact, Washington's holding its tongue collectively as part of an effort to keep Russia from going too far afield in this Syria issue. Obviously, it's a very tense moment with negotiations with rebels and the Assad regime in Syria, and the Russians have an important role to play in those talks.
Well, it's certainly something that we will be watching out for. Thank you, Greg, so much for joining us. We have more on that in today's paper and online.